So finally, the 2024 F1 season is almost here. Livery launches are done, pre-season testing is done, time to head down to Bahrain and just get on with it now. There's a lot up for grabs this year, and teams and drivers have a hell of a lot to prove, so let's get into this and look at my predictions for the season ahead. 3 surprises, 3 flops, let's have a little look. So my first surprise will be Ferrari and them closing the gap to Red Bull. I just have a feeling that this year Ferrari have finally got themselves together. I'm talking about the car, personnel, the team overall. Luck, that's a huge factor. I think they've finally got it. But Red Bull's RB20 looks straight up frightening. It looks like it's going to be an absolute demon on the track. They've implemented a very radical design, and Adrian Newey has really kind of made other teams raise some eyebrows. He's been absolutely cooking on this one. However, though, I do think Ferrari have done their homework this time with the SF24. It's a big departure from its predecessor, which is a good thing. Reports from testing look quite positive, and I think it's going to help Ferrari in one of its poorest areas last year, which was consistency. Now, aside from the car, Fred Vasseur came in and it looks like he's implemented a very kind of different way of doing things at Ferrari. And it looks like towards the end of last year, this was kind of starting to bear fruit a little bit, which in turn I think is going to hopefully iron out some creases and create more of a winning mentality, but also stop some of these silly mistakes and terrible strategy calls that we've seen from Ferrari in the recent past. And no surprises here, I think Red Bull are going to be the fastest, Max is going to win the championship again, but an improved and consistent Ferrari with Leclerc and Sainz behind the wheel could give Red Bull some trouble this year. Definitely a lot more trouble than they had last year. And also Ferrari were unlucky not to claim second in the Constructors last year. If it wasn't for all the bad luck and mishaps and all this stuff, it was theirs on a plate for them, that second place. I think Ferrari are going to be right up there, tucked in nicely between Red Bull and second place, which I think is going to lead to kind of a bottleneck of teams behind Ferrari fighting for third position. And as long as Leclerc keeps his head up and Sainz stays right up there with him, I think Ferrari have got a good season ahead. There's definitely podiums, pole positions, and even wins on the cards here. So yeah, kind of good season ahead for Ferrari, I think. Okay, and now for my first flop of 2024. 2 for the price of 1 here. It's going to be Mercedes and McLaren. Okay, maybe not flops, but maybe just kind of disappointment. Now, from everything that's been going on through the season break and in pre-season testing, I'm just kind of getting a vibe that Mercedes and McLaren are still not where they want to be and are seriously going to have to develop their cars even further. Mercedes have introduced a very clever and also perhaps somewhat wily new front wing design and also a fantastic new livery, but it's just the fact that Hamilton has decided to call it time at Mercedes before the season has even started just creates that element of doubt and shows, I think, that he's seen something already that he doesn't like. You know, they're going down a completely different road this year with design philosophy on the W15, but alarm bells are just ringing already, it seems, at Mercedes. And this is just from what we've seen so far. I guess it depends what you read, and you know, this whole thing of does testing even matter, but it just doesn't seem to be very positive right now. Now, where Mercedes was so happy that last season was over, McLaren, on the other hand, were in stunning form by the end of last year, after salvaging what appeared to be like at the start of the year a disaster of a season for them. But it's just that trend that McLaren have of starting poorly and finishing brilliantly, or vice versa. It just seems to be the McLaren way of doing things recently, not being able to put together a consistent season from start to finish, and I just think it's going to continue into this year as well. Now, hopes were really high, super high at the launch of the MCL38, but it's ever since testing, it just appears that heads have dropped. I mean, even if you look at some of the body language recently of Lando Norris and even Oscar Piastri, it just doesn't look well at the moment. Now, fortunately for both Mercedes and McLaren, they both have very capable driver lineups who are able to haul a car well above expectations. But on the Mercedes side of things, we're going to have to see how Hamilton's relationship with the team develops as he finds himself kind of slowly detaching from the team, and then involving Russell a bit more in some key decisions and also meetings. McLaren's hopes do look like they are resting on the shoulders of Lando Norris, but it's going to be really interesting to see how Oscar Piastri performs in his second season with a bit more weight and expectation and also pressure on his shoulders a little bit. But despite everything I've just said, there could also perhaps be an element of sandbagging going on here. I mean, Toto Wolff and Zach Brown both know the game. They know what they're doing, and they know where to be very, very smart about things. I guess we'll just have to wait for Bahrain, won't we? Just beat McLaren out for third place in the Constructors' Championship, but the big thing, I think, is that neither team are going to get a win this year. I'm sorry, Mercedes and McLaren fans, but, I do wish them both the best and hope they prove me wrong. And just as an add-on, I think that both of these teams are going to beat Aston Martin, but this is because Alonso is going to be doing all the heavy lifting there this year. Now, my second surprise for 2024 is going to be VCarb and their speed. Now, if the Constructors' Championship was based on team names alone, these guys would come dead last. However, with some closer but more questionable ties with Red Bull, I think that we could actually see VCarb upsetting some of the big boys and also kind of returning to similar sort of results that we saw in the earlier years perhaps of Toro Rosso. And their lineup is decent this year as well. Ricciardo's been around the block and knows how to win himself, and Tsunoda just seems to be improving year on year. He just needs to hopefully stay out of trouble. Very regular points are on the cards, and also a lot of Q3 appearances as well in qualifying. Now with the drivers, I think Ricciardo is going to finish higher than Tsunoda, but only just, maybe by just a couple of points. But overall in the Constructors, I think VCarb is really going to leapfrog Williams and Alpine, pushing them up to 6th place. So overall, I'll say 6th in the Constructors' Championship, maybe 5th at a push if Stroll makes a complete hash this season, but I'd say overall VCarb are looking very quick and will surprise us all this season. Now, my second flop of 2024 is going to be Alpine. I just have an inkling that Alpine are going to face an absolutely dreadful season ahead. The vibes coming out of the team since the launch aren't good, and everything that we saw in testing, it looks like that they're on the back foot and it didn't really yield anything that impressive. And reportedly the car is heavy, lacks grip, and still needs a lot of work done to it. And with all these signs, I just sense that the Alpine meltdown will continue into 2024. These almost emergency levels of weight saving that we saw at the team launch are kind of very telling and do kind of go with what they're saying about the car being heavy as well. And also, I know it's just a TV series, but those Alpine episodes of Drive to Survive were just, whoa, things are really bad there. Now Gasly and Ocon have probably had enough at this stage and are looking for their way out. This season they're probably going to be fighting over scraps, points maybe 8th, 9th, 10th place, and we'll probably see them having a couple of incidents together as well, I should imagine. Just not looking good for Alpine right now, and it's actually really sad and it's a shame to see this team Enstone in the shape it is, given the success that they've had in the past. And with that, I can see them dropping down to 8th behind Williams, but still doing a better job than Sauber and Haas. Now, my third surprise of 2024 is going to be Williams and them keeping their momentum going. It's really hard to ignore the feeling of positivity and rediscovery coming out of Williams right now. James Vowles has done an absolutely stunning job of pulling this team back from the brink and helping them climb the ladder again. There's a newfound sense of confidence in the team, and I think that they are in a really good position this year to be chasing much more regular points. Some of Albon's performances last year were just straight up heroic, and now that he's confirmed locked in with the team until the end of 2025, they don't have to worry about him sodding off at the end of the year. They can work with him and help develop the car and really put their time in. And who knows, he might even stay beyond 2025. We'll have to wait and see. Now, the FW46 is a complete departure from last year's car. I think Williams sound like they're still getting to grips with it, but I think it's still going to be a step in the right direction for them. Now, this doesn't mean a lot, but Williams finally put the little monitor on the steering wheel rather than having it mounted on the chassis, and it's just these little things like that which just shows that there's a modernization and a real kind of step forward with the team. Now, despite Williams being one of my listed surprises for 2024, unfortunately, I think there is going to be a small flop tucked in there as well, in the shape of Logan Sargent. Now, he retained his drive by the skin of his teeth, and whether you think this is from the good nature of James Vowles or has something to do with Williams' American backers, that's up for debate. But in this second season now, and potentially with a better car, I just don't see him keeping up with Albon at all. And it's because of Sargent not being able to keep up with Albon, I think Williams are going to retain their 7th place in the constructors standing. Williams are going to overtake Alpine, but both of them are going to be overtaken by VCARB, so therefore 7th. And as a little bonus, I'm going to put this out there, and I think Albon is going to get a podium this year. I just feel something that is going to happen. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And now my third flop for 2024 will be Haas and their depressing season ahead. Oh, what an existence this team has. So straight away this season, the gulf that Haas had with some of their competitors last year, guys like Sauber, Williams, AlphaTauri, that gap was big, but this year it's going to be even wider. And because of this, I just sense that Haas are going to have an absolutely dire season ahead. What's to be decided if it was a good idea or a bad idea is getting rid of Gunther Steiner and replacing him with Ao Komatsu, but either way, Komatsu has a hell of a job on his hands this year. Although I do think Hülkenberg and Magnussen is the best lineup the Haas have ever had. It will not be enough though to outdrive a car that is made up of bargain bin parts. And also bare minimum investment from Gene Haas. The speed that Haas had over one lap last year was quite impressive, but this year I think that is going to be completely gone, and we're going to find them qualifying mostly at the back of the grid this year. It's just a few things seem to be making sense at Haas right now. You've got Gene coming out with things like, there's no reason for us to be last, but of course there is. You've got the smallest budget, the smallest team, and the team is scattered all over the world. In America, the UK, and Italy, it just isn't working. I expect Haas this year to be backmarkers with a capital B, finishing 10th in the Constructors' Championship, maybe with 1 or 2 or maybe even 0 points, but absolutely nowhere near the 12 points that they got last year. So there we go, folks. That's just some of the things I think we've got in store for the season ahead. Anyway, we're finally here. The new season is here. Let's enjoy it. Cheers for watching, guys. See you soon.